All right, everyone. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today on the 6th day of Sikh Coalition Summer Series. The Sikh Coalition Summer Series has been a week-long virtual event which has brought community members together to learn from one another, discuss important issues, and engage in fun activities for all ages. During this session, we will be having a conversation with individuals who have participated in college sports, and they will be talking a little bit about how they broke barriers in their athletic career while still maintaining their beliefs. For those joining us for the first time, please remember to use the Q&A function to ask our panelists any questions that you may have. And we are so excited to be able to welcome Samrath, Sofia, Angad, Sirjaut, and Simrin. We're thrilled to have you all join us today. I'll first start off with introduction, and then we will dive into our conversation. So first we have Samrath Sujaan Singh. Samrath is a Division I baseball player for Boston College in the ACC. Academically, he is studying finance, accounting for consulting and finance, and computer science. He will be a junior in college in the fall of 2020. Welcome, Samrath. We're so happy to have you here. Next, thanks, Samrath. So next we have Sofia. Sofia was recruited to Rutgers Field Hockey in 2013 on a full ride scholarship. She was a national team member for Canadians, then decided to take on the opportunity to play Division I field hockey. Currently, Sofia is an emergency room registered nurse doing what she believes to be her calling and also participating in Seva. She aspires to continue to go to school and get further education to work in trauma emergency conditions while serving her community. She is a proud Sikh and takes lots of pride in Sikhi and is always looking for ways to encourage young Sikh women to break barriers in sports and community. Welcome, Sofia. We're so excited to have you. Next, we have Angad Singh. Angad Singh Ahluwalia is a 20-year-old rising junior at Goucher College in Baltimore, Maryland. He's originally from Philadelphia. He is also a student athlete on the men's basketball team. Academically, he studies economics and sociology with a focus in income inequality and behavioral economics. Welcome, Angad. We're excited to have you. Next, we have Sirjaut Kaur. Sirjaut is originally from Wisconsin and spent her youth attending Camp Sikh Virsa in the Midwest. In 2011, she was one of the top recruits for Colby Sawyer's College inaugural NCAA Division III field hockey team and received the MVP award at the end of the season. Sirjaut holds an MFA in film from American University and a BS in zoology from the University of Wisconsin and currently works in program development at the Smithsonian Channel in Washington, D.C. In her spare time, Sirjaut enjoys hiking, playing music, and adding to her list of places to travel to and explore. Welcome, Sirjaut. Lastly, but not least, we have Simrin Kaur Dhillon. Simrin Kaur was recruited to play field hockey at Rutgers University, where she completed her Bachelor's of Science in Exercise Science. She is currently a student at University of British Columbia Medical School in Vancouver, BC. She dreams of becoming a physician and serving vulnerable communities and her own Sikh community through Seva. Samrath, Sofia, Angad, Sirjaut, and Simrin, welcome to Sikh Coalition Summer Series. We're so excited to have you here. We have gotten a lot of positive feedback about having this panel a part of Summer Series. We have a lot of youth that has joined us today, a lot of parents as well. And we hope that we can have an insightful discussion and make sure that all the questions are answered from the audience's end as well. So welcome. And to start off the discussion, we would love to hear when you all started playing sports. Was this something you have been interested since your childhood, or did it come much later? And anyone can start, feel free to.
I can start us off. So as Inderpreet said, I'm Simrin. I started playing field hockey a little late. I started in I think when I was 10 or 11, and I actually, that's how I met Sofia, one of the other panelists. we started playing on the same club, and she was much more seasoned than I and had been playing since she was much younger, as I'm sure she'll mention. But I kind of transferred over from soccer and picked up field hockey as my dad had kind of suggested, and ended up loving it.
I will go, fellow field hockey player. Thank you for having us. I was in a bunch of sports growing up, and I think I started playing field hockey about the same time, maybe 10 or 11. And in Wisconsin, it wasn't very popular of a sport, so I would try to find every avenue that I could find to play the sport. And I carried on other sports like basketball through high school, but then probably about my sophomore year of high school, so it's second year of high school, I completely went to field hockey and focused on that for the rest of my lower academic career.
Hi, I'm Samrath. Thank you for having me. I played baseball since I was 6 years old, but I played a bunch of other sports as well. Met one of the other panelists here, Angad, through our Walia, and we played a lot of basketball together. And now he's a Division II basketball player. So love sports for a long time, played them from a young age, and baseball stuck with me.
Yeah. So hello everybody. I'm Angad, like Samrath said. We basically grew up together. I've known him since I was a baby. We played lots of sports together. I even played baseball with him. Wasn't that good. He was 10 times better than me. Played football, basketball, just got into a lot of different stuff. But I really didn't play a minute of organized basketball until I was 14. So I really got late in the mix on that. But I have an older sister too who also played college field hockey. So she kind of paved a path for me because she was really competitive with athletics. And I was like, wow, I got to figure out what I want to do now. So.
And Sofia?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, finally. Sorry, I'm having some struggles over here. But my name is Sofia. I heard all the introductions, and it's nice to meet you all. I started playing field hockey when I was really young. I used to just go to the field with my dad. And again, like everybody else said, I played many, many sports. But at around, I think, the age of 14, I kind of had to pick which competitive sport I wanted to do. And so I ended up picking field hockey because I felt like that was kind of my calling. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I ended up playing that but mostly because of my father. That's kind of where we bonded the most, and we still do. I'm glad you guys can hear me though.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Sofia. Glad to hear from you. But yeah, and that's really interesting how all of you have started, somewhat in your childhood, but didn't really consider it to be something that you would be playing in college. And so that leads me to my next question. What is the process of, becoming a part of a college team? What does that look like? Is this something you have to try out for? Do you have to apply for this position? How does that work?
It's very different for every sport. So for baseball, I can talk to you from experience going through the recruiting process. It's a lot of, if you're not throwing 95 miles an hour, it's harder to get noticed. So for you to get noticed, you should be going to showcase tournaments where colleges are there. You should be going to college camps where multiple colleges are there, not just one. And that I can see as a common factor between other sports, just going to college camps. But other than that, you have to be very proactive in talking to college coaches and keeping open dialogue with them, which will eventually lead to unofficial visits. And then from there on, they could offer you.
Really backpacking on what he said about the whole idea of camps, exposure camps, elite camps like that, where you play in front of these coaches and you play in front of their staff and their scouts. That's a big part of it. It's not like coaches are coming down to watch you play all the time. Sometimes you have to put yourself out there and you have to make yourself available to them. And then you start a dialogue, like he said, always talking to them, back and forth, texting, emailing, how are your grades, all this kind of stuff. And then it's just it's a long process, so it's a lot, but that's kind of what it is until you find the right setting for you, athletically, but more importantly, academically.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for myself, it was a little bit of a different procedure where I kind of had to advocate for myself. Luckily, I got some recruiting done just from different coaches that had seen me play at different tournaments. But I kind of basically took the schools that I thought were academically important, like Angad said, and then also field hockey important, and just kind of emailed those coaches and said, hey, look, I'm an international recruit. I'm going to need a full ride scholarship. And, you know, this is kind of what I'm looking for. And the more transparency you have with these college courses, coaches is better because they kind of help you see where you fit in and if you're going to be recruited or not. The process itself is long, but I think and a piece of advice for all the people that are listening is that just making sure that you're transparent with all your coaches and transparent in what your needs are and always putting yourself ahead of kind of what the opportunity offers.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sofia. And not only it's scary, right? You're like 16 or 17 and you're talking to these college coaches that can be extremely daunting. Like the only real adults I talked to at that age were my teachers in high school. So not only being transparent with the college coaches that you're in contact with, but really making sure that you have, you know, your local coaches on your side and advocating for you. They may not have been through a college recruiting process themselves, but they definitely know other people who have, or other coaches at different schools who have. So making sure that you surround yourself with people who believe in you and will able to speak for you and your abilities is really helpful, because it's hard going through at 16 and cold emailing these coaches and saying, please watch me play. Because it does help to have someone else saying like, yes, we know she's good. Please also watch her play.
Yeah, and sort of, I guess, just to round it off, I think I completely agree with what everyone said. And similar to Sofia, I think as an international, it can be also daunting when you've never been to the school or you've never been to the state. So you don't really know what to expect. So I really definitely encourage emailing early, talking to any peers you may have at the school, even if they're not in like on a sports team necessarily, just getting any advice like that can be helpful to see if you would be a good fit at that institution, period. And then also, yeah, just like what everyone said, I think really starting the process early and asking for help, like asking your parents for help, asking other peers for help. And I think a lot of the time, I don't know if anyone else really touched on this, but sometimes if you don't have like the means to maybe go to some of these tournaments or you're busy with other things, like you can always make like recruiting videos. And I know there's lots of companies that do it, but like I know I like had my iPhone out and like made them on iMovie. Like you can definitely make it work. So yeah, I just think really being proactive and being clear with what you need financially and you know, showcasing yourself is really important. And yeah, just reaching out for help when you need it.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, that does give a little bit of insight. We actually have a question from the audience. Simrin and Sofia, can you elaborate on what you mean by international?
Yeah, so as in, what we mean by international is that we're both Canadian citizens. So we both are from Canada. So being recruited to US university is like sometimes a bit of a different process for us, just because like financially we generally would prefer a full ride, which is luckily, and we're really grateful that Sofia and I both were able to get that. And sometimes there's some different kind of hoops you have to jump through in terms of like getting your visa sorted, making sure academically things line up. So that's sort of what we mean by that when we say international students.
Yeah, I think like the process for us can be a little bit more different because obviously you have to make sure that you have the funds to kind of do all the different recruiting things. And when you're asking for scholarships, you know, like one full ride international scholarship divides up into many different scholarships for, you know, students that would be coming from the States itself. And so that equals to a lot more players coming. For us, like our scholarship is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Kind of that's what they make up for it because they have to pay for international student fees. They have to pay for our athletic gear. They have to literally pay for everything. And so when they're recruiting you, you have to make sure that, you know, you're going to a place where they really do want you. And of course, they're not going to recruit you if they don't want you. So that's kind of where that comes from, the international aspect. And we've had many teammates that have been from Australia, from England, from Ireland. And so a lot of different internationals come as well. And luckily we were just from Canada, just kind of over the border.
Sophia and Simran, thank you for clarifying that. And going back to our conversation before, many of you mentioned that it is a balance, looking at what college you really want to go to in terms of academia, and then also looking at what their sports team looks like, what sport you may want to play, what's a better fit for you. Just, speaking a little bit in more depth about that, how did you balance the school life, making sure you're on top of your work, and also, this whole other world and where you're playing sports and making sure that you're making, paving your way through that part of life?
Growing up, we had to deal with doing well in school, because when you're getting recruited, if you don't have the grades, you can't go to, say, a better academic school, which you might want to do. So for me personally, I had to balance school and baseball, since I can remember. So going into college with that, definitely different experience in college, but it's experience to rely on that I had. So in college, it's like you're doing two jobs, and just having that work ethic, pounded into me since I was younger. That's what I rely on every day in school. It's just pretty regimented, and as long as you're getting your work done, you're keeping your head down, really doing your best, then it seems to work out.
I know for me, it's a lot of like playing a college sport, like he said, it's honestly like having two jobs. I mean, you're a full-time student, but then right after you're done class, most of your friends, are going back to their apartments, hanging out, whatever, but you're going to the gym, to the weight room, to the track, whatever you're doing. And personally for me, I like it. I like the hustle. I like it teaching me like a sense of time management, prioritizing, like, okay, I got this schoolwork to do. I'm gonna do this project. We're leaving early. I'm missing class because of a game this day. So I've talked to this professor. So, it helps me manage a lot of stuff, because living on your own already is hard enough, especially like right when you get to college, especially for me, my freshman year. So I guess I learned a whole different sense of time management, prioritizing, and balance. So it's really like a very applicable skill for a lot more than just a college sport.
Yeah, I totally agree with Angad. I think just to kind of showcase what our days look like we would have early morning training from 7 to around 10, and by 7 is kind of when we'd be getting ready to go, and 8 to 12 we would train, and then from 12 to 1 we would have lift, and then from 1 to 10 we would have all our classes, because that's always important too. And I think when you're I was 17 when I flew across the country, so I'm from British Columbia, and I went to New Jersey, and it's quite far away, the farthest distance you can get. And I think with that, when you're 17 years old and you have to learn to manage that, but you also have to realize how important school is, and you have to realize what you want to do with your life. So there's a lot of pressure to prioritize what you're doing. And so it's definitely not easy, but I totally agree. The skills you accumulate over the years are totally kind of practical in your lifetime. And so that's definitely something. But just to kind of put an image out there, I'm sure you guys kind of had similar days as us, where your whole day is jam-packed, and within that you got to find time to shower, you got to find time to eat, you got to find time to do your homework and do your assignments. And then on the weekends we'd usually travel, or we'd had 2 games on the weekends, and that kind of jam-packed our weekend. So that's that's how we kind of had to learn to prioritize school and sports. We didn't really have a choice.
I think it also, you can look at different schools and different colleges and try to get a sense of the work meaning school and sports balance. I'm thinking of work-life balance because that's what I'm in now. But when we go on these trips and these unofficial visits, usually the coaches set us up with another player on the team, and then the coach leaves so we can have a candid conversation with someone who's already on the team. And those are the conversations that you really need to prioritize what is important to you. So if the player says yeah, we're undefeated, but I haven't slept in 3 weeks, that might be a red flag for you. Unless you want to officially be only sports person and maybe have academia as a backseat. But then you might go to a different school and the player says, yeah, we haven't won a game, but I'm getting straight A's and I'm getting a full ride to medical school. So there's a balance, and each school is different. So it's really making sure you ask the questions and seeing what the day-to-day life of each player is. Because not every school, so I went to a Division III school, and there were Division III schools who were the undefeated ones and didn't sleep for 3 weeks. But then there were the smaller Division III schools, which one of them what I went to, where we would still have a good balance. So I think it just depends on what school you look at and what tier you look at, and what the coach expects of you and how the players are handling it.
Yeah, I honestly feel like everything has pretty much been said, so I won't really go ahead and repeat it. But I think overall, just like the habits that I think you build, I think like everyone's first year, whether you go to like Div 3, 2, or 1 school, if you're playing a sport, you're gonna be like, wow, this is like, I need to learn how to manage my time. And I think even though it's kind of overwhelming at first, you're forced to just get in the swing of things. And I think that adaptability definitely helps in the future as well. Like whether you pursue grad school or you get into the workforce, whatever you end up doing, I think you gain a lot of skills from being a student athlete that are really applicable later in life. So yeah.
That's a great point, Simran. And as Sofia and Sirjaut were listing out, what it looks like to be an athlete and be in college at the same time, I was having a little freak out moment because, I can't even imagine myself, being going back to university and playing a sport and not, cramming my classes, making sure my work is done, my grades are up so I can stay in the sport that I want to play in. So that's a lot of hard work. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because, much of the time it seems like that it's a really easy balance. Like you just need to make sure that, you're doing good in school, but you can also focus on sports, but it definitely is a balance, and you need to make sure that you are doing the best you can to, remain really well in your sport life, but also in your academic life. So yeah, thank you so much for addressing that. So we do have a question from the audience, and this is open to all of you. Were you at all apprehensive entering college sports as a minority? And was there ever a time that you experienced discrimination on the field?
I wouldn't necessarily say entering college like as a minority, more the minority within my sport, because going from like, the high school level or the like competitive AAU summer league level, and then jumping into like the college level, it's a different speed, different everybody's coming from different places, everybody has something to prove. So I guess I myself was a little apprehensive. Like I was a little like, oh, what's it going to look like? Who are my teammates going to be? Where do they come from? What do they play like? That kind of thing. And as far as the discrimination goes, I mean, I've never really experienced it from within my own team. Well, I actually never have, but you see it in a lot of different corners, especially in a sport like basketball where the fans are right on top of you, like right on the sidelines and stuff like that. Or if you're like throwing the ball in right in front of the other team's bench or something, some kid says some racial slur or something like that. So you experience it, but as I've grown up, as I've gotten older and stuff, I've learned to overcome it by letting my game, where I am, and all that kind of stuff speak for itself rather than getting into like small stuff like that. But that's just me personally.
In my experience, Boston College is a Jesuit Catholic school. So when I was getting recruited, it's a funny story. My coach researched Sikh and then related a lot of Sikh values to those that are in or within the Jesuit values, which was eye-opening to me. So one of the Jesuit values is to be a men and women for others. That's pretty much the same thing as doing seva for everyone. So going into BC as a Jesuit school, I was concerned, like, do I need to be Catholic to go here? But it's not the case. It's more of a teaching you values from a religious standpoint, not enforcing their religion on you. So I'm glad that I'm going to BC, and it's not something that really played out in my mind.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, like New Jersey is quite a diverse place, but I totally agree with Angad as well. I think definitely a minority in the sport. When I first went there, there's only ever been, Caucasian women that ever played field hockey in the Big Ten or, in Division One, and it seemed like it was quite a weird thing to have like an Indian person on a Division One team at Rutgers, and even in all the sports, like I was one of the first ones to do it, and in that, like it sounds cool, but it's also sometimes intimidating because when you're waking up and you're doing, Japji side in the morning in your hotel room, and then you got to go play a game, and people look at you like, oh, like, can I say something? Like, do I have to tiptoe around and kind of go from there? But I think one thing that really benefited me was educating my teammates on what Sikhi is, and letting them know what my religion is. And I think when I left Rutgers, a lot of people knew about Sikhi. A lot more of my teammates knew about what it was and what our values are, and kind of what we instill in our religion. And I definitely agree. I think we're a minority, and for me and Simrin to play on the same team for 3 years was quite amazing because there's 2 Sikh girls doing, the same thing together, and that was quite an eye-opening experience for us. And so I definitely think like Sikhi in general, or just being able to practice your faith like freely, can sometimes be intimidating. But I think when we kind of educate people on what it is or what we're doing, it becomes a little bit of a easier path for us. And of course, we've always faced like racial slurs, and people whisper things and they say things, but you just kind of have to be the bigger person, and you just kind of keep playing your game and work hard.
Yeah, just to sort of echo what Sofia was saying. So we obviously went to the same school, so I can definitely, I definitely agree that it was very diverse. But I think, like, I definitely remember a few instances, even within my like class on my team, like some people just maybe weren't as like aware, or didn't have that diverse background, maybe coming in from their high school. So now, like I definitely remember some kind of awkward conversations, or comments that were made that kind of made me feel like an outsider at times. And I think when you're that young, it can be really scary and intimidating being in a new place and being like, oh gosh, like I never felt like I didn't fit in, but like now I suddenly feel like that. So I think it can be really intimidating, but having that honest and open communication, because I think as everyone can echo, like when you're on a team, like you're going to be with these people all the time. So when you disagree about something, or you feel like maybe someone doesn't understand something about your religion or is passing judgment, sometimes like having a conversation about it and being like, well, this is who I am, and like this is what I believe, like Sofia mentioned that we've had to do a couple times, can just really break the ice and actually end up being a really positive interaction. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would say for me, so I grew up in a very, very white town, and my siblings and I were the only, definitely the only Sikhs in our school, and one of the few non-white people in our school. So then going to college, it wasn't necessarily college that was making my minority of a sore thumb, but so I was kind of used to being the minority in the sea of white. But so the main difference was living away from home, and I think the fact that my parents and my Sangat at home instilled such a strong faith and strong backbone of Sikhi in me, that going to college, it took out the home life and the reminders of the parents every day. But I think because I grew up like that, and because I was confident in what I believed, going to another white space, and even in life outside of college, going to white spaces is not really something that I fear anymore, because I've been like building on that confidence for my entire life. So the situations change, but my faith and my confidence and my beliefs haven't. So that helps me carry through into being the minority.
Thank you for those answers and that insight, everyone. I think that's really helpful, and I hope the folks that asked that answered your question. So pivoting, or going even deeper into that conversation, has keeping your Sikhi Sarup your gaze been challenging? And have you ever had to ask, administrators to seek, did you have to seek permission from coaches, administrators to wear your articles of faith, or, alter your uniform in case you chose to keep gaze on your body and felt more comfortable wearing long pants, for example, and not shorts? Often as a civil rights organization, we get a lot of requests from parents, especially when their children are in high school or in middle school, if we can ever offer any resources. And much of the time, we do give them advice that has been given from other students that play on teams. So is there any advice that you would give? And, is there any experience that you would like to share?
I'll go. Changing myself for the eye of the outsider was never an option for me. It was part of who I am, and keeping my gaze and everywhere was always what I was going to do. And I never really thought to do anything different. Growing up playing basketball, almost all jerseys, especially for girls, are sleeveless. So growing up playing basketball, I would just add, a t-shirt underneath. And then as I got into more competitive areas of mostly field hockey, I would get, just like an Under Armour short sleeved. And in high school, I never was questioned. I think there might have been one coach who wasn't necessarily my favorite coach that I came across made a side comment, but it wasn't even to my face. And it seems like people who do feel the need to talk you down, it's either out of fear, ignorance, or they won't even have the courage to say it to your face. So that was how I went through high school. And then when I went to college, I needed to know what color Under Armour shirt that I got under my jersey. So I emailed my coach and I was like, hey, what colors are they? And I then called her and started going into this whole spiel, like, I'm Sikh, I don't shave, I don't cut my hair. And she's like, oh no, that's fine. Our jerseys are white and black. Like, you don't even have to explain more. She's like, similar to Samrath, like, they did their research, which I loved. And I think the people who want to help foster you as an athlete and as a person will understand. And the people who don't want to understand probably won't be the best people to help you grow as a person. So I am lucky that my parents were very forthcoming and very accepting in me wanting to play sports, and I don't even know if they told me to wear sleeves. I think I did. I just did. But it just never really crossed my mind. But I do know that it's easy to get pressure from the outside and seeing, other girls shaving and other girls changing their appearance. But I think just being rooted in your Sikhi and what the gurus gave us is really a good North Star, to paraphrase core life. And it's been eye-opening even out of college, because I'm in the professional world now, and I'm like, can I wear this? I'm like, of course I can. I can do, as long as I'm confident in myself, everyone else will see that and respect it.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, technically I break uniform code. Right now I'm wearing a pug or pugri, and I technically break uniform every time I go out to play. I wear a geski on the field. So this past year, the umpires or the higher ups of college baseball called my coach saying, you realize he's breaking uniform every time he goes out to play. And, my coach stood by me. He was like, yeah, and he's going to break it every time. So now I'm clear to just play with my keski, but technically I am breaking dress code. I'm really glad to, again, be at BC because my coach stood by me, my teammates stood by me, and it's not a problem. So very thankful for that, my experience.
So I had a very somewhat similar experience to Samrath. Before our season even started, my freshman year, my coach made sure I did all the necessary stuff. He contacted people in NCAA. He contacted people in our conference. he contacted people in every conference we actually played a team in. So I really appreciate him I appreciate him for doing that like a lot, just to make sure if we had an away game at some conference and they're like, who is this kid? Can he wear that? And the ref would already been like, yeah, their coach ran it by us all the way back in September. So, I mean, you got a lot of help from your coaching staff, the trainers, they all understand that kind of stuff. You know, like if I'm getting like my ankle taped or my wrist taped for a game, you say, hey, take it light. I have a lot of hair on my body, you know, put some pre-wrap on it. Don't just rip that tape off, something like that. So the more and more you talk to people and the more understanding they are, the more that people like understand you and where you're coming from in retrospect. I don't know if that made that much sense, but something like that.
No, for sure. And that's really refreshing to hear from from you guys, because working in the community and working with children, most of the time we hear about a lot of bullying issues that happen in middle school, high school, when they start playing sports on their school teams. So it's really nice to hear that there are coaches, that there are teammates out there that are very supportive of their teammates' beliefs and treating them with the utmost respect. So that's really nice to hear that there are people out there that are able to understand that people are different. So thanks for sharing. So we have one other question for the Singhs. How did you deal with your hair in the locker room or retying your dastar? And then in addition to that, we also have a parent in the audience who has asked, how did you manage with the helmet? His 3 sons play sports, but they're always trying to figure out how to manage their long hair and fit it into the helmet. Any advice would be appreciated.
Yeah, to wear a helmet in Little League, I would just cut the foam out of the top.
Yeah.
Just like shove it on my head. I would wear just porque when I was growing up while playing. So I would just, cut the foam out of the top, put the helmet on. That's how I, I'd buy the biggest helmet and then cut the foam. And the other question was tying at the start. After school or in the locker room, I'll go to the bathroom. I have a kanga on me, and I comb my hair and I tie my keski. It's not if anyone walks in and sees it and they want to hear about it, I'll tell them about it. It's not something that's super secretive or anything. It's just another thing we do, just getting ready for the game. Some of them might, tape their wrists. It's just putting on our uniform, right? So if they have questions, I'm welcome to ask, as long as they're being open and honest about it. And then, yeah, that's all it is.
It's the same thing. I experienced basically the same thing. Like the first time I tied a keski before one of my away games, all my team was like, whoa, your hair is that long? Because I realized, like, oh my God, I never really told y'all about like how I have uncut hair. So, the more I did that, they became more open and my teammates were more understanding. Now, I've had plenty of incidents because I play a contact sport where, I don't know, I was going up for a layup or something and someone comes to block me, my keski like flies off. So I've tied a keski on the sideline, like behind the bench or something, with the trainer holding up a mirror. So I guess it's just, a part of, it's something I'll never give up. So it's something I'm more than happy and willing to do to keep playing a sport I love. So even when I was young, like Samrath was saying, when I played football or when I played baseball, I would just pull it down as hard as I can, try and hit a home run or something so I don't have to stand with the helmet on for too long.
Thanks, Samrath and Angad, for sharing that experience. Both of my brothers were in sports growing up too, and I remember the shoving of the helmet and everything. One of my brothers played football in high school, so what he would do is just flatten out all of his hair and then make sure that the helmet fits. So I definitely saw that growing up, and I know that it could seem as a challenge at first, but there's definitely ways that you can make sure that you can keep your gaze and still make sure that the helmet goes on and you're protecting your head and your face, for sure.
Yeah, one closing remark I want to make about that is just because you're combing your hair, tying the star in front of your teammates, you can really use it as an opportunity to connect more with your teammates and use it as an opportunity to educate others. The more comfortable you are with who you are and showing your teammates this is who I am, the more they will accept you and start to connect with you and respect you for your religious beliefs and all that. So
Definitely, for sure. I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, great point, Samrath. I think that, when we were having this conversation and even in other questions, a lot of folks have asked, what has been has it been difficult being a minority while playing, your sport? But I do want to highlight that communication is key. So it's always important to make sure that you're explaining your beliefs, you're explaining, why you may do things a little bit differently than others. And it's a great way to have a conversation, right? So it could be a conversation starter. If somebody asks you, what is a turban? Why do you wear it? And why do you have so much hair on your body, right? There are ways to create that as a positive conversation and make sure that folks are learning during that conversation as well. So great point. Just, going back to that just a little bit, a lot of you explained how, your teammates or maybe even your coach sometimes looked at you differently, but you overcame that. How has Sikhi, however you practice it, provided an advantage to you in sports?
It definitely helped for my mindfulness, focusing on, like Sofia was saying, like waking up for a game day, doing Japji Sab, and just being in that state of like concentration. I think I've been creeping on the question and answer recently, but I think I saw a question of, do you get nervous before games and how do you overcome that? Sorry to step on your toes, Inderpreet, but it's the key for me in the athletic world. Definitely, one, it puts things in perspectives. At the end of the day, it's just a game. But two, it definitely helps me focus my energy and focus my attention. And doing Bhat or Simrin before a game, or even when you're really nervous, to just calm yourself and really, hone in on what you need to do. I think that definitely gives me the major leg up before games, especially.
Yeah, just
go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to be quick, but honestly, just completely agreeing with what you're saying. I think there were a lot of times when, and I think having actually Sofia there as well, as like an upperclassman that got it, and we like being able to like, do Bhat with her sometimes, or like on my own, when you're having a stressful day, when you have field hockey or whatever your sport is, school, you're traveling, you're studying for exams, like all of that can be really like anxiety provoking at times. And I think returning to your faith and just having like a moment where you're like, I'm just going to sit down and like listen to some kirtan, or I'm just going to do Simran, or I'm going to, and I think it really does help with just like the mindfulness and also just grounding yourself, because I think like whether you're an athlete or a student or a professional, like whatever you're doing in life, I think lately more than ever, we really recognize the importance of like staying grounded and staying like having sort of like a home base to come to when things are, going crazy in the world. So I definitely found that for me, I think in college and in university, I think I actually grew more as a Sikh. And I think I actually connected with Sikhi more than I even had before coming into college, which was really awesome. I think like our Sikh Student Association at Rutgers was really a great community that helped me learn so much more about Sikhi and grow closer with the faith. And then of course having like another teammate who was also Sikh really helped. So yeah, I think that's how I was really able to connect more with it and use it as a means to help me with anxiety and any other stressful situations.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Like we were pretty lucky that, for me, I come from a town called Surrey. I'm sure you guys all know about it. And for me, like the first thing I needed to do when I went to Jersey was find a group of people that I could also be with, other than my teammates. And I think when it comes to Sikhi, like it's all about what you make it. A lot of people add these stipulations, but Sikhi is kind of your own path to becoming, connected. And for me, like things I did before the game was like I used to wake up in the morning, do my Japji Sab Bhat, and then So obviously you have to take a shower before then, and you would go to practice and take another shower. But it's like making those things work because they're important to you. And I remember before, when our anthem used to go on, the American anthem before the games, like for me that was like my 5 minutes of just like doing Simrin or Moon Mantra before the game, which helped me kind of calm down my nerves. And so there's different ways that I incorporated Sikhi to my athleticism that allowed me to kind of even reach further. And I think, like, in general, in the States, like, we see a lot of ignorance towards minority religions. And I think the biggest kind of aspect, or the biggest thing we can take from that is when we educate people on what it is, it becomes less of a problem. And even if it's like 10% less, it's still less than what you started with. And so that's kind of the Sikhi aspect. But just playing a sport in general can be quite nerve-wracking, especially when you're a freshman or a sophomore and you're trying to build on your skills and you're trying to compete with teams that are, at a higher standard and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of my pre-game ritual / how I kind of incorporated Sikhi into my Rutgers journey.
So if I was to talk about how Sikhi gives an edge, like in my sport, I think about why we wear, and why am I Sardar? Why do I wear a keski? Why do I wear a pug? Obviously because our case is our valuable present from Vaiguruji, and we wear our pug to showcase that. It's our crown, but it's also for the reason to stand out to others that we are here to help. We are the warrior race, and we are pillars. We can be a pillar in your life to help you. We wear Sardar. We are Sardars to stand out for that reason, to show you that I'm here. I'm someone who is available to help you, someone who is willing to do seva. And that's the kind of role I want my teammates to see from me. And also how Sikhi can become a positive, or has helped me in my sport, is it helps you tune out the negative, because obviously there's going to be people who are going to talk, and if you're unable to deal with that, then how are you ever going to progress in your sport? So being Sardar and wearing my turban, obviously the remarks have been made, but it makes you mentally stronger when you're able to forget about those and you're able to zone in. And it's all about the Sangat when you're out there. And in that case, it's the Sangat of my team. So when I'm showcasing my case, when I'm showing you that I'm here, I'm someone who's going to be cheering you on, I'm someone who's going to be a great teammate for you, which is everything that wearing a pug shows in everyday life. I'll be a good Samaritan. I'll be there to help you in times of need. I think that's something that Sikhi has really helped me with.
No, I love that energy, Samrath. I definitely agree with that, because it's a lot of times where it's like, oh man, I'm real tired right now. I don't know if I can make this free throw, or coach, sub me out. I need some water or something like that. But you think deep and you think about like your religion and your religion values, and like throughout our history, we've gone through so much, right? But we've always prevailed, and we've always come out stronger on the other end, and we've always grown. And definitely what Samrath says, being a Sardar, having your kes, tying your keski, tying everything, it just gives me a lot of strength. So personally, Sikhi and athletics is like an edge for me. Like, some people take pre-workout to get an edge. I don't need that. I have my Sikhi Sarup and everything I've been through in my life, everything we've gone through as Sikhs, and that kind of, it's different for sure. If you're in the locker room and your teammates have a big speaker blasting whatever rap album just came out, but you're in the corner with your headphones listening to some kirtan. But, it's like that difference right there is really kind of what makes it all feel surreal to you, and makes you really realize that you're out here living this dream and you're doing this for a lot more than just yourself.
Yeah, and as all of you were speaking and sharing your experiences, it really reminded me of the concept of Chardi Kala, and remaining in that mindset at all times. So Simran, as you had said, like a lot of the times anxiety does come with playing sports and being a college student and balancing all of that, but also making sure that you're able to fall back on your Sikhi, to fall back on your beliefs, to remain calm and remain in high spirits at all times. So that really resonated with me. And then all of you had said that this energy, this boost that comes through with being, just with the identity of being a Sikh is really important as well. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I really hope that answers your question, to the audience member who had asked that. And we have a few parents in the room as well. They really pose the question of how can we encourage our children to get into sports, or, to follow their dreams a little bit seriously, especially when it comes to sports. We see a lot of the times as children, we play, various different sports. We play basketball, soccer, whatever. And then once we get into college, we kind of feel that we may not be good enough to either try out for a team, for a school team, or to even approach any recruiters. So what advice would you give parents?
I can definitely personally attest to that one, if it's cool if I go first with you guys. But definitely when it comes to like parents and like, wanting to play a sport, don't let the sport use you. Don't get caught up in the sport. It's not the end of the world, all right? It's important to you. You want to drive. You have this drive, right? You have this ambition to be successful within your sport. You got to use the sport as a means to get somewhere. If you combine like this talent you have, right? And there's a coach who wants you, and then you have these like stellar academics, like these stellar extracurriculars, and you put it all together. Like, what I want people to realize is that sports, just because you play in a sport and trying to focus on it, doesn't mean you're sacrificing anything else. If you're focused and you're focusing on your sport, focusing on the books and focusing on your extracurriculars, you have there's no limits to your potential. You can go anywhere with it. And your sports is just a means of, getting a free education or building these lasting connections. I mean, I had teammates who graduated my freshman year who were out working jobs right now, and I'm still close with them. And you have all these connections with different people, and you're known on your campus, oh yeah, good game last night. You meet people, all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a great tool to use on a lot of different levels, way more than athletics. That's just me.
I can speak to when you said, you might be afraid to approach the coach, right? So then you're placing on yourself, you're determining your value right there. I'm not good enough to do that. That's not for you to decide. The coaches are the ones who tell you if you're good enough to play. So if you're never going to go in front of them, then immediately they discard you, right? So you have to, take it in yourself, whatever they say, I'll understand, but you have to put yourself out there and put yourself in a position for them to actually make the judgment. Is this guy good enough to play? Because you'll never find out unless you go play in front of those coaches, right? I can't say I'm not good enough to play for Boston College, but I'm playing there, right? I went out and my coach told me, you're good enough to play here. I want you to come here. If I'm going to, throw away my chances before I even go out and play, then yeah, you'll never actually play. But it's having the strength and peace of mind and oneness with yourself to say, hey, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to do my best. The coaches will tell me if I played well enough and to their liking enough, if I can play here. If not, I'm still going to try hard and try to keep improving. But if you're not going to go out and play in front of those coaches, then you'll never actually, achieve the goal of playing in college.
Yeah. Oh.
Go first.
Okay. I think when you set yourself up with a goal, whether it's playing in college or whether it's, getting a full ride scholarship, number one, as parents, we should be encouraging your kids to kind of go into any sport that they like. Obviously, there's opportunities in specific sports, but any sport or anything, even if it's on the sport that they're passionate about, that's where you kind of end up becoming the best at when you like it anyways. But one other thing that I'd like to say is reality is when you want to compete at the highest level, when you want to compete against the best of the best in all over the world, you have to put that pressure on yourself, and you have to realize that it's not going to come easy. And I think my dad always used to tell me that he was because of your color and because you're coming from a place where you're an Indian girl, you can't be the 18th person on the team. You have to be in the top 5. And that seems like a lot of pressure, but that's kind of the reality. You have to try your best to become the best at what you're doing in order to get the most opportunities. And that actually did help me end up getting many opportunities, because there's other schools that I was looking at too. But in the end, as a parent, like, you know, you play everything and you expose your children to everything. And then at the end of the day, once they become, you know, specialized, or they become encouraged to play something specific, then you push them in that. And, you know, without my parents, I wouldn't be here. Like, every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you know, it was practices all evenings. And then on the weekends, we were at the field all day. And that was for literally 17 years of my life. And then I went to the States. So I think as parents, it's important to encourage your children, but also sometimes, you know, we shy away from putting pressure on our kids because, oh, we don't want to give them too much pressure. But in reality, if you want them to be the best, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I was actually also going to sort of talk about this more from like a parental sort of point of view. Not that I can speak like firsthand, but just seeing what my parents had to sort of go through and like their commitment to helping me develop as an athlete, and their support with the commitment I had to like academics. I know that it was a lot for them as well. Like Sofia said, like driving me out to practice 5 days a week while I'm like sitting in the back doing my homework because, you know, we're going from practice to this training to this lift, like all through high school was definitely a big commitment for them. So I think recognizing that if you want your child to be able to fulfill this desire of theirs, that it does take a toll on you as well. And you are also committing to the sport almost as much as they are. But at the same time, as like for any aspiring athletes out there, like, you know, you can also recognize that sometimes maybe like we've been fortunate, at least Sofia and I, that our parents were super supportive of us playing the sport we loved and going abroad. But I know that that's not always the case. And sometimes parents might not be super encouraging of you to play the sport you want for whatever reason, or they might be like nervous of the fact that you might go away for school. So I think as like a young aspiring athlete, like talking to your parents about that and sort of outlining where you see yourself. And I think Angad really touched really well on how it's not really just about the sport. Like, of course, if you have dreams and aspirations to play at an Olympic level, like that's amazing. And that's 100% go for it. But for the vast majority, this is just, it's something you do and it's something you're passionate about and you can play for the rest of your life. But hopefully you're also using it to further your education. And yeah, I think like for me personally, like I knew well before I started college that I wanted to pursue medical school. And I knew that through undergrad, like playing a sport was going to be taxing in terms of like trying to keep up my grades. But it was something that I think I'm so grateful my parents supported me through and the university supported me through in terms of providing tutors and helping. So I think if you have those clear goals for yourself, even if you don't know exactly where you want to end up in your career or what you want to do with your life, just envisioning what you want and really, like everyone's touched on, having those goals and really fighting for it and advocating for yourself is a great way to get yourself in the door of these colleges.
I have nothing to add. Everyone answered it so greatly.
Before we go to the next question, do you mind if I add something real quick?
Sure.
I just like hearing everybody else's answers. I wanted to add too. I think it's really important that parents also initially, you know, support their kids in pursuing their dreams. I mean, personally, my parents didn't grow up in America necessarily, so they didn't necessarily play like youth sports the same way I did. So like going to like a summer camp for basketball, it may have been a new idea or could be a new idea to some parents out there. So again, like Simrin said, I really can't speak firsthand as a parent, but I think support initially, like unconditional support, is also very important too, from any parent to any kid trying to pursue whatever dream or passion they have.
Yeah, thanks for that, Angad. Thanks for adding that point in. And oftentimes, as you know, as you probably know, in our culture and sometimes even in our faith circles, we don't really see, you know, parents or even older siblings promoting the idea of playing in sports at a professional level or even at a collegiate level. We always have a focus on, oh, you know, make sure that your grades are up, you know, school goes first, and then extracurricular activities most of the time take a back seat, right? We don't really see a promotion of that so much. And so it was really nice to hear, you know, that how parents can continue to support their children in any dream that they may have, not just in sports, right? If there is something that they're passionate about, this is a way that parents can continue to encourage their children to, you know, to take part in, and not also be, you know, doing well in school, but, you know, there are other things you can be doing simultaneously. So we are at the top of the hour, but we had a really good question come in, and I think it's the best way to actually end this session. And the question was, you know, we would love to hear who your role models have been in a world where there aren't many people who look like us.
I will start. My role models are, it is hard, right? Because as I said, my family was we were the only Sikhs in school, and all of my extended family is overseas. But you know, my Sangat around the Southeast Wisconsin area is really great, but specifically, my parents are my huge role models for me. Both of them grew up in England, and my dad played a lot of sports growing up, and they were both very immersed in life there. And then my sister was actually the one who got me into field hockey. She played for, she's gonna get mad at me, for like a season. And I was like, I want to do that too. She's 8 years older than me. So even if it's not necessarily like a community member that is in your day-to-day life, literally just her picking up a stick for like those 6 months got me into the sport when I was like 10 or 11. And that's what kind of propelled me. And I think if I could, like, I don't necessarily like talking about myself a lot, but I think if I need to make sure that other young Kaurs and young Singhs are comfortable in themselves, then I'll keep talking about myself. But yeah, my role models are definitely my parents and my siblings, because they did it first. I'm the youngest, so yeah.
I think nothing beats family, just like Sujaan said, and you know, parents 100% are big role models. But it's also just, you know, people who you just play around with, you know. Like, I used to play a lot of basketball at the Gurdwara side, you know, with Angad, some other guys, Gurjab, just playing there. All those early memories of just enjoying with you know, your Sangat and your friends and those dear to you. I think that is what inspires me, or, you know, not necessarily a specific role model, but that's what inspires me, you know, to try to have those same feelings now as I did then.
I definitely want to add on right here. Someone kind of stole what I was going to say, but I was going to say, to be honest, my biggest inspiration, of course, is my family. So I'm incredibly blessed to have parents who love me and have guided me and supported me unconditionally through what I do. Also, my older sister, who was a senior in high school when I was a freshman, and seeing what she did with playing field hockey in the high school level and on like the national level and stuff, then going on to play at an Ivy League school. And she played at Dartmouth and graduated last year. And just seeing that itself in front of me is one thing, but the crazy, like, what I wanted to add, it was like, honestly, like, I still have memories of Samrath and I breaking the basketball hoop at the Gurdwara when we were younger, just running around all the time when we were younger, playing sports. And then, you know, eventually everybody gets older and you see somebody take one sport, someone take this sport, but you're inspired by those around you. So, I mean, I'm easily, like, I can sit here and call him my brother, call him family. So I guess, to me, family is the most inspiring thing to me, especially.
Yeah, I'd like to say that kind of I cut off a little bit from here, but my role models, like field hockey wise, were always men, like Indian men, because we luckily had a lot of people that represented Canada in the Olympics, and they were actually like some of my coaches. But obviously my inspiration and my people that I play for were always my parents. Always represented and played for the Sikh community as well. That was really close to my heart. And then lastly, like just kind of all my parents' work over years and years and years of, you know, putting me through coaching and putting me through training and all this other stuff. So at the end of the day, I really did play for them, and they were my inspiration and they're my role models. And even though they weren't field hockey role models, they were role models and inspiration in that way. And so yeah, I think like between the Sikh community and my parents and family, that's kind of where my drive and my initial kind of perseverance came from. And then along the way, I picked up many reasons why I wanted to represent and play.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with everything everyone said in terms of like family and within the sport, having role models that are athletically really gifted. But I think even more than anything, like when you see like other athletes that like, whether there's like people of color and like especially like Sikh athletes, like male or female, I feel like at least I personally would get like really excited hearing about some other athletes that I know went to, Michigan or Stanford, and they were like Punjabi girls who played like whatever sport, whether it was like soccer, field hockey, basketball. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool. That's so exciting. And I think that that sense of community that we have like within Sangat and within like our religion really can be further exemplified in like athletics. So like even now, like just meeting everyone on this panel, and like it gives me like a sense of excitement knowing that like there's like people representing Sikhi at this level and playing and fulfilling their passion. So I think you can definitely find role models that are older than you and maybe more not more talented, but like further in their career in whatever way. But I personally draw role models even from like people who are younger than me, and I think meeting other athletes who are doing their thing and hustling and fulfilling their passion while maintaining their faith and really holding that value close to them is really inspiring. So yeah, I think just keep it up and feel free to reach out to anyone. And I think finding role models within your community and peers can be really powerful and motivating.
Yeah, and as you were answering that question, a lot of parents are commenting saying that they're thankful for all of you and that you all are also amazing role models for their kids. So thank you so much for agreeing to participate in this panel. It's been eye-opening for me. As I said in the beginning, I don't know much about sports. I played soccer here and there growing up, but I never really got too serious about it. But like some of you said, it's never too late. Maybe I can pursue that dream now. So again, I wanted to thank you all for participating in this panel. Special thank you to Sirjaut, Simrin, Sofia, Angad, and Samrath for sharing their time and their experiences with us. I hope that this conversation was eye-opening and insightful for folks that want to play sports, in high school and in college, and I really hope that it answered most of your questions. If you have any further questions or you want to connect with our speakers, we will be following up with their emails. So, you would be able to ask them any questions that you may have or any advice. And then in addition, the Sikh Coalition Summer Series program is running till tomorrow evening. So please go ahead and take a look at the rest of the week's sessions and make sure that you register at sikhcoalition.org/summer series. And we really hope we get to see you again this week. But again, thank you everyone for joining this panel. It was really insightful. And I'm glad that we got to, actually see each other, not just on email, but also, through our screens. So nice meeting all of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
thank you. This was really great.
Thanks all. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.